Good afternoon, Year 6. Today we're going to be analysing some information about temperature across the globe and looking at how it varies. And once we've completed that, you're going to be doing some data presentation and data analysis to see if you can understand how and why data shows differences in the presentation of temperatures in the different countries within the world. Okay, so as I say, last week we looked at rainfall primarily with the data presentation that you sent through. This week we're thinking more about temperature. And to be successful today, what we'll need to be able to do is understand what temperature is, really simplistically. Secondly, we'll need to identify the data which shows the different temperatures across the globe. We'll need to present that data using line graphs, and then we need to, once we've presented the data in an information form, we need to analyze that information and see what we can understand from it. Okay, guys, so just a bit of recall from last week, and you've got a version of this in your pack. Now, what I'd like you to do is see if you can identify which biome goes with which description. So if you're not sure, have a think back to last week's work. If you are sure, either use scissors or write down which one goes where. I'm perfectly happy if you cut up the pieces that you've got and stick them in. Okay, guys, lots of you have now matched the description to the biome, and now what I'd like you to do is think about which example goes with which section. Okay, so which biome goes with which description, and then which example, you can see these up in the top right-hand corner now, which example goes with each of the descriptions in the biomes, please. Okay, guys, pause your video whilst you work through that, please. Okay, thank you. Now, looking on, we can see these are the different examples. So the UK is a temperate biome. So remember, our climate that we're looking at here, the climate which we looked at over the previous 2 weeks, is the broader weather which is experienced over a broader period of time. It's not a change within a day or within a week. It's the broader temperature and rainfall that a location experiences. So with our mountainous regions such as the Himalaya, they're very cold, sometimes wet all year round. Those tropical areas like Brazil with the Amazonian rainforest are hot and wet all year round. Those arid places, which we've also looked at within our science sessions, are dry and hot all year round. Okay, guys, so once we've done that recall, thank you for engaging with that, and hopefully you managed to do that on your sheet. We'll think about that word temperature. We looked at temperate earlier. Okay, so that's the type of climate that we experience within the UK. So cold winters and mild summer. Does that mean that temperature is the same as temperate? No. The definition that we've got is the degree or intensity of heat. So how hot it is, and how hot it is, how frequently is the temperature. Okay. If we look at temperature, though, we can notice that temperature and tempera are similar. We can think of that similarity. The heat element of temperature is slightly different. Now, I'd like you to complete the section which looks at the image and the usage and the antonym for temperature, but a similarity, a synonym, is hotness. So those 3 sections which are incomplete on your vocabulary grid, I'd like you to complete them just to consider how you could understand or how you could explain to somebody else what the word temperature means. As I say, we're focusing primarily on temperature today. So we're going to look initially at this place within Brazil, Belém. Okay, this place, if we can see, if we see on our world map, we can see the location of this area. So the arrow, which is pointing just near my head now, actually, shows that element of Brazil. Now we can see that many parts of this area experience humid conditions. Okay, the winds are usually light, but the tropical storms can be a problem. Now at the bottom you can see the rainfall data, and then just above that, if I just move myself down so I can show you where I'm talking about, we can see the degrees Celsius. So that line that across there shows the temperature, the average temperature for those different times of year. Okay, so if you look now, can you see if you can identify just from looking at this data representation, which is the coldest month of the year? Okay, so we can see just once in the year it drops beneath 26 degrees Celsius on average, and that month is March. Well done, guys. So we can spot that March is the coldest month in Belém. Now, as we progress into Cairo, so North Africa, in the capital city of Egypt, we can see that it's a dry climate. So it's that Saharan desert climate. We can see that some of the temperatures may drop as cold as freezing at night. And we think back to Belhem. And Belhem had 25.9 degrees Celsius in March. If we look now in Cairo, we can see that the temperature in March would be 17.4 degrees Celsius. So the temperature's cooler in March. However, if we look back at Belhem, temperature doesn't deviate much between 26 and 27.5 throughout the year. But if we look at Cairo, it goes as high as 27.9 in 2 months. Which 2 months are they? 27.9? Well done, July and August. And as low, how low is it in February and December and January? So you can see how low it goes at other points within the year. Okay, little rain all through the season in that desert climate of North Africa. And now we can look at another location which has somewhat temperate, but sometimes quite really very warm temperature, which is elements of Australia, so Sydney. Okay, so sometimes there is elements of rain occurring, but summer is the wettest time of year for this area. Now, Australia, the winters are generally mild, so not very cold, and the summers are warm, and there's very little rain. Okay, so if we look back, thinking about Belhem, our tropical climate, we can see there's very little variance in the temperature. We can see in our desert space within the Cairo temperature that there is quite high variance, and we'll look at this when we present it in the line graph later. But we look now at Sydney in Australia, we can see again as low as as low as 3.3 in January, and as high as, what's the highest, guys? Is it July, August, or June? Well done. Yeah, July's 27.4 is the highest temperature here. So we can see the different temperature showing how variant it can be. So it goes up quite steeply and then down quite steeply as well. The temperature for a colder temperate space. So in Sydney, it's a warm temperate climate. So there's variance within these biomes as well. In Sydney, it's warm. In London, in England, it's a colder temperate zone. So you can see, though, that there is still variance within that Celsius bracket. In London, the coldest month is January, where it goes as low as 3.9. Which is the warmest month? Have a look at the table of data, see if you can identify that. Well done if you've pulled that out, the warmest month being July on average. Now, that's not saying it's never hotter than that. It's just saying on average in July is 17 degrees Celsius. You can see now in the polar climate, so in one of these cooler areas in Russia, in Moscow, the capital city of Russia, in the northern hemisphere, we can see that it gets a lot cooler. So you can see that the numbers for November, December, January, February, and March are prefixed with a negative symbol to indicate that it's below freezing. So for those 5 months, the average temperature is under zero. So water would freeze if it was placed outside. Right, guys, your work today. First of all, what I'd like you to do is look at this sheet that you've got, which is the same data that has been presented to you in the PowerPoint today. Once you've got that, you're going to try and make your own versions of these line graphs. Now, for each of the 5 biomes, you're going to represent that temperature data on a grid that looks like this. You're going to represent each biome on the same grid, but with a different line. So in total, rather than having one line like this one for the red river discharge rate, you're going to end up with 5 lines. You might do a different color for each one. That might be the best way of representing it. On the y-axis, you're going to mark the temperature value. So on that y-axis, you'll mark the temperature value. And along the x-axis, you'll mark the months of the year. Okay, so you should be able to use that grid to make that point. Once you've represented the data within an informative presentation, so using these line graphs, I would like you then pull apart the data on your line graph and to analyze it. So an example of what I'm after is here. Looking at this data, it's clear that the place which would be hottest at this time of year is, and this time of year is the time of year you're writing this, so hopefully on January the 21st. However, during April, the warmest place will be, and similar sentences like that. So I'd like to see 5 or 6 sentences which show you're interrogating and analysing that data. Thank you for your analysis of the data today, Year 6. I look forward to reading and seeing your representation of that data. Thank you again. See you soon.